Hey, Scott from MyGrowthRings.com here once again is in the home of my future shop. And we're back to finish up this discussion of the Shopsmith crafter station slash power station. When we last left off, I installed a link belt, but this link belt is a 1/2 inch wide. And the original belt is 5/8 of an inch wide. So I now have the appropriate 5/8 inch wide link belt. Just playing around after removing this to see if I could determine what the proper length of this belt needs to be. And I decided that what I would do to do this, and I have the original belt as well to compare to, but by taking this down to its lowest speed, if I put the belt here on the lower pulley, at that lowest position, this center portion of the pulley will be pushed as far away from the headstock as it can be, widening that portion of the pulley. And so with that would be the position that this would be at slow speed. So based on that, wrapping the belt around and kind of guessing at the appropriate length. And there might be some trial and error. And as I mentioned, after these run in, they tend to need to be shortened slightly because each of these links will be pulled to its final spacing. And then at that point, you might have to remove a link. So where are we right now? How many links do I have? Let's count them off. Is that right? I don't know. We're going to find out. So I'm going to put this one together, and then I'm going to compare it to the original belt. Remember, we remembered last time that these assemble easier inside out. So we're going to take this end, pass it through these two links and give it a twist. This last one might need a plier to maneuver it through and to twist it in place. But once that's done, we'll have this assembled. There we go. Now let's compare this to the original belt that we took off. So here's the original Shopsmith belt, and I'm pressing these two together. And I believe that we have the right length. So I need to make another one, and then we're ready to put it on. So as a point of reference, it's taken 5 feet to produce those two belts, and that's what I have left over. You'll find that sometimes these are sold in 4-foot lengths. That's not going to be enough to get the job done. Now, at this point, I mentioned the fact that they are directional. You have to watch the direction in which these little tabs are bent. And with the crafter station, it runs in reverse. And so I've decided I'm going to go ahead and have these positioned so that they are running in the forward direction, the direction that I would use this machine for powering accessories such as the bandsaw, because that's really what I use this for, is more of a power station than a crafter station. I'm tempted to put one on in reverse, so on average, they're running the correct direction, but I just don't see myself using this as a table saw, and so we'll get these on in what I believe is the proper direction. This machine, when it's operating a single purpose tool or special purpose tool, it's turning in this direction. And so we're going to watch to make sure that these tabs are laying down that way. Okay, in order to do this, the back pulley, the pulley that's the closest to the headstock, that's the one that's going to connect to the motor. I'm going to put that on, but I'm not going to wrap it around the bottom pulley. That'll be the last one I'll install. And then now we'll install this on the front half and slide it over the top pulley. From here, I just need to feed it around the lower pulley. We'll start it on the edge of the pulley and then just rotate everything around. And there we go. Everything is now installed. Let's run it through its paces. That is substantially quieter. Don't know if you were able to hear that, but I certainly was. So what I'm inclined to do now, because there, as always, is quite a bit of flapping going on, I'm inclined to go ahead and remove one more link and see if I can force it on and then just run it in. I think I'm going to give that a try.
that's it.
Now, we do want to get into some of the maintenance lubrication issues, but before we do that, there is one thing I've wanted to do for quite a while, and that is to check this thing out with a tachometer to see what kind of speed we're getting at the top and the low end. So, much against my better judgment, I went to Harbor Freight and bought this tachometer. Actually paid twice what I was expecting to pay for one on Amazon, but the Amazon one just didn't arrive. I don't know what the deal is with Amazon these days, but things keep getting slowed down coming to my end of North Carolina. Any rate, what you do when you use this style of tachometer is you attach to the thing that you're checking, in our case right here, the drive hub, a little piece of reflective tape, and then this has a laser that's going to shine a beam onto that reflective tape, and that'll give us an idea of the speed. So with this set at slow, we're just going to shine the little laser onto that tape, and once it kind of settles in on the speed that it believes it's running, that speed will become displayed steadily, and it looks like we're about 881-ish RPMs right now at slow speed. I've checked it a couple times. It's come in right around 880. So let's take it up to full speed. And we will check it again. So what happens is you're holding the button down, the test button. You see it really fluctuates quite a bit, and then it finally settles in. And if we, again, hold down this button, it tells us that it was ending up with an average speed of 4,431. So we're right in there. I'm not dissatisfied with it. What I was concerned about perhaps is that this link belt, because the way the link belts run in a pulley is they run a little bit higher. And so I was concerned that that might affect the RPMs just a bit. Seems to be perfectly fine. So now let's move on to talking about lubrication and maintenance. I already mentioned to you that the center pulley, the adjustable pulley, does have some lubrication on it. So it's in the manual tells us that we don't have to ever do any lubrication to that, but it is something that if you're ever changing your belt, I would suggest that while the belts are off, go ahead and pull that shaft off, clean it, clean the interior of that adjustable pulley, and go ahead and apply a grease. Not a lot of grease. What grease? Probably a lithium grease. You don't want to have anything that's fibrous. It won't take much. You know, when we add oil and we add grease into a machine that's going to be used around sawdust, that grease and oil is just going to be a magnet. So we don't want to use any more than we have to. Now, here's where things get interesting. You know, our manual told us that there's no lubrication required. And yet the next line in the manual tells you the motor's an exception. The motor, the electronic motor hanging below here, has 2 points that need to be oiled occasionally. And how occasionally is occasionally? 50 hours of use. And so that's going to vary from user to user. Let me show you where those points are. All right, so what we have here on the back side of the motor, there is a bushing, and around that shaft is also some wadding. That wadding is supposed to be kept oiled. So we're going to want to clean this area off up here, and we're going to pull a cap that's inside of a plug. I'm sorry, we're going to pull a plug out of this. Just grasping it and wiggling it should prop it out. Should pop it out. All right, then how much oil do we put in there? It just depends upon when your motor was made. So the oil we should be using for this is an SAE 20. This is a 10 weight motor oil. So this is not the oil that you would want to use here. You want to use, again, a 20 weight oil. So you're going to want to check your manual, but really to be safe, check the label on your motor. Believe it or not, my motor tells me that each end here gets 100 and 50 drops of SAE 20 weight oil. That's outrageous. Now, how are we supposed to measure 150 drops? Well, the thing is, if you overfill these, that oil is going to come out when it runs. So we do want to be careful. You can count drops. On this one where the fill point is at the top, I guess that's the way I would do it. Now over here on the other end, I do things a little bit different. So my label's upside down, so I took a photograph of that and flipped it over so I could read it. And the instructions of exactly how many drops of oil you add is listed right here on the label. Now on my motor, the plug is on the side of the shaft here. And so to get that out, I'm going to use a flat blade screwdriver. Again, we'll get the dust off of it. No need to introduce any gunk into it. And we'll just get along there and pry, and that'll pop that cap right out. Now into this one, it's a little bit easier because I find that I can just add oil directly into it until it begins to flow back out of the hole. Very similar to the way we add oil to the jigsaw. At that point, I feel it's pretty well lubricated, and just go ahead and plug that back up. Now, another interesting observation is the fact that the motor shaft isn't in a straight line between the center shaft and the top shaft. In my case, my motor's off to the side just a bit. It doesn't matter. It's not a bandsaw. These don't have to be in alignment with each other in that respect. What is important, though, is that our motor isn't hanging down or too high in the back. We want that motor shaft to be perfectly parallel with these two shafts. Now, one more spot that never needs lubrication, that might someday need lubrication, is back here where we have a rack and pinion. This is how, when we turn the crank on the front, how we're moving this shaft and pulley up and down. There's a channel created here and over here that rack is running in. And if you notice inside of that, something that looks a little bit like beeswax, that would be beeswax. Shopsmith used to apply a little dab of beeswax to that. Again, it's not something that you're likely to need to add lubrication to, but if this is moving up and down in a rough manner, you might need to take this apart. You can remove the pulley and then remove the bolts that hold this member in place, and you can take the whole thing apart and clean it, and perhaps use some paste wax or a spray lubricant, a dry lube on that. Whatever you do, just don't go crazy. It doesn't need a lot of lubrication. So now the final thing I have to do is I need to replace the little cushions that are missing from the belt cover. And well, I don't have anything here to replace that. In fact, I had a couple cushions in my pocket when I came down from the house, and somehow or another they disappeared. So we're going with plan B. So I have a little bit of a hook and loop or Velcro fastener. This happens to be the loop, the cushiony side, and can't find my double-sided tape. So we're going to use a little bit of fast cap, fast edge here. I've folded it in half. It has adhesive on one side, and I've created a little bit of a spring from that. And with that, we're going to attach that here where the original cushion was located. That'll give us a little bit of spring and a little bit of softness, and that should take care of our vibration. So she's been chugging along for a couple hours now, and I'm really, really thrilled by this. Where do I land on this? I guess I would say that if your belts need to be replaced, you might want to consider this if you happen to have a power station. If you've got a crafter station that you're using primarily as a power station, it might be worth considering link belts as well. As far as our Q&A follow-up video, I didn't do one after the last video because really it was incomplete. So together with this video, I think we're ready to do a follow-up. So be sure to leave your questions, comments, and cheap shots below, and we'll follow up near the end of the week. So in the meantime, make it a great day.